I've never been one to take somebody out of context, so when I saw Trent Horn had more videos on homosexuality, I decided to listen. Well, I haven't listened to them yet, because I'm still doing an impromptu response. But when I saw they were on YouTube, I decided I'd make a video responding to them to see if there's any valid criticism here, or if it's still just, very vague, which is the problem I had with the earlier one.
And so we associate those who hold false beliefs as being morally deficient, there's something wrong with them, they are the other, and we can even end up stereotyping or caricaturing these people like, oh, they're just a bunch of heathens, or they're bad people, they're not like the good people that I know. And so then your faith can be shattered when you meet other people who hold your faith that are terrible individuals.
And then atheists who are really respectable, lovely people.
Yeah, if you're raised with the idea that you can't be good without God.
Yes.
And then you meet atheists that are kind and intelligent and compassionate and believe in holding ethical beliefs and acting in ethical ways. You start to think, oh, well, never mind. Or you meet someone who identifies as LGBT. And so you have always been raised with a particular stereotype of
seriously dysfunctional human being.
Dysfunctional. And I do believe, though, that within the LGBT identity, there are serious sexual dysfunctions when it relates to orientation and identity. But we're all broken in certain ways. And so we can still have other redeeming qualities in spite of our dysfunctionalities.
Right.
And so that's...
So, several things here. What does he mean by dysfunctional? It's always weird when people just throw that out there and don't say anything. Like, you could almost apply the criticism he used in the last video I saw of him where, oh, that's really abrasive. Just explain what you mean. How? Who is it hurting? Stop saying dysfunctional. And if we're all dysfunctional in our own way, then why are gay people especially dysfunctional? Like, I guess he would say they're not. We're all sinners. But what makes gay a sin and not regular proclivities? I don't understand. How is it dysfunctional? He doesn't go on to explain, but let's see if maybe he does by the end of this video.
Is that someone who, let's say, identifies as LGBT could be a kind, warm, and caring person, and they may even have a romantic partner, someone who they genuinely will the good for that person. And I can acknowledge the good things they do for that person that are not sinful. This is a pledge to care for that person when they are sick or ill, to provide for them.
I think I've heard you say this in the past. It's not like our only options are holy marriage and haven of filth.
Right. But at the same time, I'm not going to compromise and say everything that person does is wonderful. I will say I am concerned because there is so much good about you, yet you seem to have found a sense of your identity in something that is disordered. And you seem to me in many other respects to be a very wonderful person, and I would like you to be able to have the fullness of life that God wants for you.
Right.
And so I think also when we're talking to people, especially about moral issues, when we're trying to lead people towards truth when it comes to morality, this is also a hard thing to give up. If you think, why we need to preach the truth and we need to get...
Why can he never just come out and say why he thinks homosexuality is sinful? This is the second video, and he still dances around the issue. And it's starting to really frustrate me, because it's becoming increasingly apparent he doesn't have a reason. He's just believing in some fairy tale about, or some messed up interpretation of the Bible. Either the Bible is wrong or his interpretation is wrong, and he can't admit that either he or the Bible is wrong. So he just has to cling to his bigotry, this very simplistic view of the world. It's kind of sad, really. But the more he abstains from coming to any kind of rational conclusion about why he hates a large group of people, the more it becomes apparent there is no reason.
Towards truth when it comes to morality. This is also a hard thing to give up. If you think, well, why we need to preach the truth, and we need to get people who, if they're identifying as LGBT, they need to repent, and that's true. But when you come at people once again with a very hard approach, it's easy for it to backfire. Yeah, and think about once again when I believe we try to reach out to other people, I think it's important. I really always want to try to get into that person's shoes. And so when I have dialogues with people, I want to really see where they're coming from. I mean, imagine if someone came to you, Matt, and said, eating meat is wrong. And it's very clear. Here is a solid ethical argument they put forward, and here is I'll appeal to your emotions with these videos of slaughterhouse killing of animals, and doesn't it just seem obvious to you it's wrong? But that desire you have for that wonderful medium rare steak is just it's hard to think, how could I cling from that? Now, I'm not advocating the view that eating meat is wrong. I'm making an analogy that it's easy for us that things we care deeply about, it'll be hard for us to get rid of them in virtue of merely an argument.
So I guess you could say this video is more about how to approach gay people and tell them they're terrible, or what they do is terrible that gives them a lot of meaning and purpose. But this is just me. I don't think being condescending is how you approach people either. But okay, whatever. But you don't have to abandon logic in telling people how to... Like, if I was saying how to approach meat eaters, like, let's say I believed you needed a softer approach, I wouldn't say abandon logic, unless I didn't actually have a good reason to be against meat eating. I mean, again, being against meat eating is very simple. You're causing unnecessary suffering to a living creature that can feel pain. So that's pretty simple, to the point. Now we can dissect that. But you see, now I can say that's the logical argument, and maybe you want to put it in a softer way, or well, no. I mean, is there anything? What's so heinous about that? Like, why would anybody be personally offended because you said eating meat harms somebody else or something else? Like, you just notify people, like, hey, you might not know this, but eating meat, I think is immoral, and I think you should think it's immoral because you're hurting another creature. What is so delicate that needs to be placed? What's so about somebody's emotions that would get them angry or riled up at that simple statement? Like, maybe you don't think this. What do you think about my view? Do you think animals are living creatures? But Trent Horn can never say what's wrong with homosexuality. He can never say, having gay sex hurts other people or hurts other animals. He can never say that because it doesn't. He can never say gay sex hurts the individual because there's no reason why that, there's no evidence that that's the case. So it's just these superstitious fears and bigotry that causes him to say it.
Speculative. But if I truly believe this, I can appeal to your nobility. And it's the same when we're talking to people who try to... I remember when I used to do marriage preparation before my time at Catholic Answers. I worked in the Diocese of Phoenix doing marriage preparation, and we would get the signups for our marriage preparation classes. And in some cases, 100% of the signups, people were cohabiting. 100% of them. Now, we could have just said, you can't enter our class until you agree not to live together. And they probably would have gone to the diocese, get married outside of the church. But instead, we invited them to be a part of it, to go through God's plan for a joy-filled marriage.
Meet them where they're at.
Meet them where they're at and challenge them to grow where they're at, to present them what God's plan for marriage and sexuality is, and to appeal to their nobility, to know that they deeply care about this other person. And so
having a good marriage. Yeah.
If they love this person, they'll want to take steps to have a faithful, fruitful, holy marriage that has long-lasting positive effects. And that, once again, if they love this person, they've probably made sacrifices for this person before. I would hope they would. True love is sacrificial. And aren't you willing to make the similar sacrifice to understand what love really is and what the best expression of our love is.
So yeah, that's the end of the clip. He never does say why he doesn't like gay people, or what they do, which I guess he makes a distinction there, kind of arbitrarily, because you're taking the thing that gives them the most meaning and purpose in life, like, or one of the greatest things in their lives. Like, imagine if somebody said, the love for your wife and children is harmful. I mean, you'd have to restrain yourself from hitting that person. That, and he says that, I understand this is very difficult to hear. Well, you know what makes it harder to hear? The fact that you don't give a logical reason. Like, if you could at least tell me how this hurts anybody, what I'm doing, I would hear you out. And even in, he gives a meat eating example where he talks about how, look, we both know this is wrong. So that's his premise. The conversation follows, we both agree this is wrong. I don't agree that homosexuality is wrong, though. So don't you need to prove that first? And if you want to teach people how to put that delicately, well, then you still need to bring up the argument for why homosexuality is wrong and how to put that delicately before you can delicately continue the conversation on how to urge people not to be homosexual. But he never says why homosexuality is wrong. Like, you could even say at least, like, is it hurtful to myself? And if so, of course, the natural question is how? Because there's no difference between a heterosexual and a homosexual relationship, besides the sex and gender of the person involved. So, why would it be different? Am I not allowed to ask that question? I guess I guess that would interfere with his logic and offend his interpretation of the Bible. Sorry.